Remember when three guys from Milwaukee stayed up way too late? They left the VCR running, accidentally recorded a terrible disaster movie from 1957, watched it, laughed so hard they couldn't breathe, then bought the entire thing for $2,500 and somehow turned it into the funniest comedy ever put on film. That movie was Airplane. The one they ripped apart to build it? 0 Hour, a dead serious drama about food poisoning on a flight, a traumatized pilot named Ted Stryker, his ex-girlfriend working the cabin. Sound familiar? It should. Airplane didn't just parody that film, it copied scenes, word for word, shot for shot. The Oscars classified it as an adapted screenplay, because technically, it was a remake. But here's the part most people miss. The directors had one rule, one golden, gloriously unhinged rule that changed comedy forever. Don't hire comedians, cast only serious actors, and tell every single one of them the same thing. Play it like you don't know you're in a comedy. That decision built a monster. I was probably 11 or 12 the first time I saw Airplane, rented it on VHS because my dad thought it was a serious disaster movie. He left me alone with it in the living room. Big mistake on his part. About 15 minutes in, I realized something was deeply wrong, in the best way possible. A lot of the jokes went straight over my head. That whole "don't call me Shirley" exchange, I didn't get it at all. I just thought the guy was being rude, but the lines somehow stuck in my brain anyway. To this day, I still catch myself saying it in completely normal conversations. My wife gives me the look every single time, and every rewatch since then, I find at least one new background gag I missed before. This movie doesn't get old, it just keeps waiting for you to catch up. Now, before we count down 17 facts that'll change the way you watch this movie, here's a taste of what's coming. You'll find out which NBA legend demanded exactly $35,000 for his role, because that's how much a rug cost. You'll learn why one of horror's biggest names called turning this movie down the single greatest mistake of his career. And you'll discover which talk show host bombed his audition so badly the director said it right to his face, "You can't act." And stick around for number 1. The funniest person in this entire movie improvised almost every line he ever said on screen. He had a secret none of us knew about, and it changes the way you hear every joke he told. If you're the type who still says "don't call me Shirley" at least once a month, hit subscribe, you belong here. Let's go. Number 17. The sound nobody catches. Here's one that hides in plain sight. Every time the camera cuts to the plane from outside, you hear propellers. That whirring, chugging sound of a prop engine spinning. But the aircraft on screen is a jet. No propellers in sight. This wasn't a mistake. The directors put propeller audio on a jet on purpose. Every flyby, every exterior shot, the entire movie, and almost nobody catches it on the first viewing. That's the thing about this film. The jokes aren't just in the dialogue. They're buried in the sound mix. They're hiding in the background of every frame. Next time you watch, close your eyes during the flight scenes. Listen. You will never unhear it. Fast forward to number 16, and things get a little inflatable. Number 16. Otto and the bicycle pump. You know Otto, the inflatable autopilot. Stone-faced, dead-eyed, credited in the end titles as Otto as himself. But keeping Otto alive between takes was its own comedy. Crew members crouched below the frame with a bicycle pump jammed between his legs. That was the inflation system, a hand pump in the worst possible position. The cast broke constantly. Every time someone crawled under to reinflate him, the whole set fell apart. And the valve placement? Nobody planned it, nobody fixed it either, because the awkwardness made every single take funnier. Otto now lives in Jerry Zucker's private collection. By 1997, he was already falling apart, but for one summer in 1980, that blow-up doll co-piloted the 4th highest grossing film in America. I love that. But if you thought that was strange, wait until you hear who showed up for the final scene of their entire career. Number 15. Ethel Merman's last performance. There's a scene in this movie where a soldier lies in a hospital bed, shell-shocked. delusional, convinced he's Broadway legend Ethel Merman. Then the soldier sits up and belts "Everything's Coming Up Roses" at full volume. The joke? That is Ethel Merman, the actual queen of Broadway musical theater, 72 years old, playing a male soldier who thinks he's her, in a bed, in a disaster movie parody. She committed to every second of it, not a single wink at the camera, played it dead straight, and it was the last time she ever appeared on screen. Remember the director's rule? Only serious actors. Ethel Merman was dead serious about performing for 50 years. She just happened to end her film career in the most absurd way possible. Speaking of things nobody saw coming. Number 14. The slap line that wrote itself. The scene was supposed to be simple. A passenger panics, screams, "I gotta get out of here!" A stewardess tries to calm her. One guy steps in and slaps her. End of joke. That's how it played in 0 Hour. That's how the script read. Then actress Lee Bryant had an idea. What if it wasn't just one slap? What if a whole line of passengers formed behind the first guy, each one waiting their turn? The directors hesitated. They worried Bryant might actually get hurt, but they tried it. Then added props, boxing gloves, a tire iron, a wrench, someone in line holding a revolver. The line kept growing, and the joke kept building until the whole plane was waiting to smack this woman. None of it was scripted. All of it made the final cut. Now this next one, pure behind-the-scenes gold. Number 13. The airport announcers were a real married couple. The white zone is for immediate loading and unloading of passengers only. You've heard that line 100 times in this movie. A male voice says one thing, a female voice contradicts him. They argue about zones, then about marriage, then about abortion. Here's what most people don't know. Those voices belonged to the actual married couple who recorded the real announcements at Los Angeles International Airport. The directors couldn't find professional voice actors who sounded authentic enough, so they hired the real LAX couple. Then they had them record this escalating argument that starts with the white zone and red zone and somehow spirals into a full-blown marital meltdown, complete with one of the most shocking lines you'll hear in the background of any comedy for a parody film. I've watched this movie more times than I can count. That detail still gets me. The whole gag runs underneath the movie. Most people tune it out, but listen closely. It's a full relationship meltdown happening in the background while a plane crashes. Alright, quick shift in tone here. Number 12. The song that made Peter Yarrow furious. There's a surprisingly gentle moment in the film. A singing nun leans over a sick little girl connected to an IV drip and starts singing this soft, sweet song. It's tender, it's sincere, and then the plane hits turbulence, and everything goes to hell. That song was written by Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul and Mary. When he saw how they used it in the movie, he had some serious second thoughts about licensing it in the first place. Of Peter, Paul and Mary, folk music royalty. When Yarrow saw the finished film and realized what they'd done with his composition, he was furious. Not at the directors, at himself, for selling the song in the first place. Somewhere, a folk legend is still shaking his head, and the audience is still laughing now. If buying a movie for $2,500 wasn't enough of a fight, try getting permission to direct it. Number 11. 3 directors were literally illegal. Remember the 3 guys from Milwaukee who bought 0 Hour? David Zucker, Jim Abrams, Jerry Zucker. They wrote the script together, produced it together, wanted to direct it together. The Directors Guild of America said no. A film could not have 3 directors, period. The Guild also rejected their proposed joint credit. Abrams and Zucker's, too clever, too fake, denied. It got worse. A DGA representative was stationed on set at all times. Their job? Make sure only Jerry Zucker spoke to the actors. David and Jim had to stand back and watch. On their own movie. Eventually the Guild granted a one-time waiver. 3 names, 1 film. Never happened before. The fever dream of three stubborn filmmakers who refused to let a bureaucracy break up the band. But all of that chaos still doesn't explain how this movie got a PG rating. Buckle up. Number 10. The PG rating that defied all logic. Let's take inventory. This movie contains nudity. A topless woman runs across the frame during a panic scene. There are direct references to cocaine and amphetamine use. A character sniffs glue on camera. Lloyd Bridges huffs from a tube in the control tower. There are multiple jokes about pedophilia. Peter Graves asks a 10-year-old boy if he's ever seen a grown man naked, and if he likes movies about gladiators, and if he's ever been in a Turkish prison. There's an inflatable doll receiving what is clearly implied to be oral sex. There are 3 on-screen suicides played for laughs, and the whole thing earned a PG rating. PG, not PG-13. That didn't exist until 1984, not R, just PG. Parental guidance suggested. The same rating as the Muppet movie 1 year earlier. If your parents rented this for family movie night, thinking it was a harmless comedy, they had no idea what they were in for. Paramount executives panicked about the topless scene. They wanted it cut. The directors convinced them to leave it in for 1 test screening. The audience went insane. The scene stayed. Some fans say this movie could never be made today. Personally, I think the jokes would land just as hard. Fight me in the comments. Alright, we're halfway through. Deep breath. Which fact hit you the hardest so far? Was it the propeller sound you never noticed? The real married couple screaming about the red zone? Or the PG rating on a movie that basically smuggled an R-rated film past the censors? Drop your number in the comments. And if you haven't hit that like button yet, now's your moment. I have to be honest, for the first few times I watched this movie, I treated it like any other comedy. I laughed at the big, obvious jokes and moved on. It wasn't until maybe the 5th or 6th watch that something shifted. I had it playing in the background while I was doing something else, and for the first time, I actually listened to the airport announcements. Those 2 voices just kept going at each other about the white zone, then their marriage, then everything else. It hit me that there was an entire second movie happening in the background the whole time. A relationship completely falling apart over the PA system while a plane was crashing. After that, I couldn't stop looking for the hidden stuff. And once you start noticing it, the movie never feels the same again. Now, what's coming next? An Oscar-winning composer who treated a blow-up doll like Shakespeare. A basketball legend who held an entire production hostage over home decor, and the story of a casting decision so bad it haunts a man beyond the grave. You're not going anywhere. Number 9. The composer who played it straighter than anyone. The directors wanted serious actors, but they also wanted a serious composer. So they hired Elmer Bernstein, the man behind The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The 10 Commandments, an actual Oscar winner. Bernstein conducted a 90-member Hollywood studio symphony orchestra, full strings, full brass, sweeping, dramatic cues that sounded like the world was ending. On screen, a blow-up doll was flying a plane. Bernstein later said he invented a character to play while scoring. A young, inexperienced composer writing his very first film score, passionate, earnest, completely unaware that everything on screen was absurd. The music is the straightest thing in the entire movie, and that contrast is half the reason the comedy works. Strip away Bernstein's score, and the jokes lose their anchor. He gave absurdity a foundation to stand on, then let it collapse. Now, here's a fact about a casting decision that never happened, and it's Universal Studios' fault. Number 8. The airport star who got blocked. George Kennedy starred in all 4 airport films, every single one. He was the face of the franchise. Airplane was built to destroy, and he wanted in. According to Jerry Zucker, Kennedy was ready to sign on, but Universal Studios threatened to sue. Their logic: Kennedy appearing in a Paramount parody would damage the airport brand, so he was blocked. Same thing happened with Helen Reddy. She played a singing nun in Airport 1975. The directors wanted her to reprise the role in Airplane. Universal shut it down. They also filmed a subplot with blind singer Jose Feliciano as a pilot. The Polish-American League protested. The footage got cut. An entire dumpster fire of legal battles, all over a comedy that cost $3.5 million. Zucker got the last laugh, though. He cast Kennedy in The Naked Gun years later. Patience pays. But if Kennedy's story is frustrating, the next one is just pure comedy. Number 7. Kareem's $35,000 rug. The co-pilot role was never meant for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The directors first offered it to Pete Rose, the baseball legend. But Rose couldn't fit it into his schedule, so they went bigger. Literally. They asked the 7'2" center of the Los Angeles Lakers, and Kareem said yes, with one condition. The directors offered $30,000. Kareem said no. He wanted $35,000. Exactly $35,000. Not $1 more, not $1 less. Why? Because he'd found a decorative rug he wanted. Not a functional rug. Not a rug for walking on. A rug for looking at. And it cost exactly $35,000. The man held an entire Paramount production hostage over a throw rug, and they paid it. Because who else are you going to put in that cockpit? The scene where a kid calls out his defense and Kareem snaps back in character as himself, that's not acting. That's $35,000 of pure, beautiful frustration. If Kareem needed a rug to say yes, the next guy needed his wife and daughter to even read past page 1. Number 6. The most disgusting trash I've ever read. Peter Graves was a serious man. Mission Impossible, Stalag 17. He'd spent decades playing authority figures who never cracked a smile. So when he read the airplane script, he called it exactly what he saw. The most disgusting piece of trash I have ever read in my life. The directors understood, David Zucker later said, and this is a direct quote. Can you blame him? He's playing a pedophile, and every line he has is horrifying. Graves turned it down. His wife read the script. His daughter read it. They told him to do it. He came back, still uncomfortable, still not sure. On set, Zucker said Graves was the sweetest guy, but probably never understood what he was doing. He delivered every line about Turkish prisons and gladiator movies with the same gravitas he used on Mission Impossible. No wink, no smirk, pure nightmare fuel. At the premiere, Graves expected silence. The audience erupted. The role didn't destroy his career, it expanded it. But the man who played Captain Over, he never quite figured out why people were laughing. That's the whole joke, and that's why it works. Graves played it straight because he didn't get it. The next guy, he played it straight because he understood everything. Number 5. The fart machine that changed comedy history. Leslie Nielsen had been the most serious actor in Hollywood for 30 years. Forbidden Planet, The Poseidon Adventure, Stern Captains, and Worried Fathers. In every role he touched, nobody would have cast him in a comedy. But Nielsen had a secret. He was desperate to be funny. On the set of Airplane, he carried a portable whoopee cushion everywhere, sold them to the cast and crew, $7 each. The fart noise epidemic spread so fast, the directors had to confiscate every single machine just to get a scene finished. During Robert Hayes' close-up, Nielsen used the device after every other word of his line. Mr. Fart, Striker, Fart, Can you, Fart, Land this, Fart, Plane? Hayes called him a maestro. But here's the deeper story. The directors told every actor the same thing. Play it straight. Nielsen took that direction and bent it. He played Dr. Rumack with deadpan precision on camera, then destroyed everyone off camera. He understood the assignment better than anyone. Roger Ebert later called him the Olivier of spoofs. Nielsen himself insisted he'd always been cast against type before Airplane. Comedy was the real him. The serious roles were the act. One more thing about that only serious actors rule, because the next fact is the most heartwarming casting story in the whole film. Number 4. America's Mom Learns to Talk Street. The directors wanted a white bread, wholesome, unmistakably square older woman to translate Jive for two confused passengers. Their first choice was Harriet Nelson from Ozzie and Harriet. She turned it down, too insecure about the language. So they called Barbara Billingsley June Cleaver, Leave It to Beaver, America's perfect TV mother, a woman who hadn't had a significant role in 17 years. She read the script and thought it was the craziest thing she'd ever seen. Her part wasn't even written. It just said she talks jive. So Billingsley went to lunch with actors Al White and Norman Alexander Gibbs, the two men playing the jive-speaking passengers. They taught her jive over sandwiches. She studied a book on street slang, researched the language on her own. When she arrived on set, the directors couldn't understand a word she was saying. She did it anyway. "Oh, stewardess, I speak jive." One line, maybe 90 seconds of screen time, that was all it took. A woman America forgot about for nearly 2 decades walked back into the spotlight by doing the last thing anyone expected. If you were born between 1960 and 1985, there's a 90% chance you heard that line before you knew who June Cleaver was. We're getting close now. And these last 3 facts, they all connect. Remember the rule. No comedians, only serious actors. Keep that in your mind. Number 3. Christopher Lee's greatest regret. Before Leslie Nielsen got the role of Dr. Rumack, it was offered to Christopher Lee, Count Dracula himself, the Wicker Man. Decades of horror royalty, a man who radiated seriousness like heat from pavement. Lee didn't get the joke. He read the script and passed. Chose instead to appear in Steven Spielberg's 1941. Let that sink in. He picked a Spielberg film over a low-budget parody from 3 unknown directors. At the time, it made perfect sense. His colleagues told him to avoid it. In a 2005 interview with Total Film, Lee called turning down Airplane a big mistake. A year later, he told the BBC the same thing. His biggest career regret. Not a horror film, not a Bond villain he missed, a parody he was too serious to understand. And the role he turned down, it turned Leslie Nielsen into a pop culture phenomenon, a career-defining performance that led to Police Squad, The Naked Gun, and 20 years of comedy gold. Lee chose the smart path. Nielsen leapt into the unknown. The lesson wrote itself. But Christopher Lee wasn't the only famous name who almost sat in that cockpit. And this next story might be the wildest casting what-if in comedy history. Number 2. The talk show host who couldn't act. The role of Ted Stryker was never meant for Robert Hayes. The directors wrote it for David Letterman. Yes, that David Letterman, late-night television's sharpest wit. He had auditioned for a part in Kentucky Fried Movie. The directors liked his energy. So when Airplane came together in 1979, they called him in for Ted Stryker. Letterman screen tested on the cockpit set. He did the scene once. The directors gave notes. He did it twice more. The whole time, he kept saying the same thing. "I can't act. I can't act. I can't act." Afterward, one of the directors walked up to him and said, "You're right, you can't act." Letterman later told interviewers he laughed all the way back to his car. No disappointment, no bruised ego. He knew, but he wasn't the only one. Caitlyn Jenner auditioned. Bill Murray was considered. Chevy Chase was suggested, but turned down by the directors. They didn't want a comedian. They wanted someone who could play pain with a straight face and let the absurdity build around him. They found Robert Hayes, a dramatic TV actor nobody had heard of. And that was the whole point. Think about that for a second. The biggest comedy of 1980 was turned down by David Letterman because he couldn't act, and the guy who replaced him made it work because he wasn't famous enough to be funny. Sometimes the best casting decision is the one nobody expects. Now, number 1. And I need you to sit with this one. Number 1. The funniest man nobody could write for. Every actor in this movie was told the same thing. Play it straight. Don't be funny. Let the material do the work. Every actor except one. Steven Stucker played Johnny. The manic, wild-eyed control tower worker who wanders through scenes dropping lines that have nothing to do with anything. The tower! The tower! Rapunzel! Rapunzel! And Johnny, what can you make out of this? This! I can make a hat, a brooch, a pterodactyl. None of that was scripted. The directors gave Zucker complete freedom. They would call him between takes and ask, "What would Johnny say here?" Because nobody on that set could come up with anything half as unhinged as whatever Zucker invented on the spot. He was a member of the Kentucky Fried Theater. He'd worked with ZIZ for years. They knew what they had. And here's where the story turns. In 1979, while Airplane was still shooting, Zucker started getting sick. Strange symptoms, cancer-like. Doctors couldn't figure it out. For 5 years, nobody could give him an answer. On July 12, 1984, the phone rang. The diagnosis was AIDS and Kaposi's sarcoma. In 1984, that was a death sentence. Zucker didn't hide. In September 1985, he walked onto the Phil Donahue Show and became one of the first entertainers in America to publicly disclose his diagnosis. He looked into the camera and said, "I'll have it till the end of the century, and then I'll probably look really horrible. But I'll ring in the end of the century." He didn't make it to the end of the century. Steven Zucker died on April 13, 1986. He was 38 years old. Here's what haunts me about this. Remember the rule: no comedians, only serious actors. The entire cast of Airplane was built on that principle. Graves didn't get the jokes. Nielsen was pretending. Lee wouldn't even try. Kareem was there for a rug. Steven Zucker was the only real comedian on that set, the only person who didn't need anyone to tell him how to be funny. The directors just pointed a camera and pressed record, and he was the one we lost first. Every time you watch Airplane and a line catches you off guard in the control tower, a line that feels different from everything else in the film, that's Zucker. That's a man making something out of nothing. No script, no safety net, just instinct. He never got to see what his work became. But 46 years later, people are still quoting lines that were never written down. Huh, that's not comedy. That's something else entirely. Airplane started as a late-night accident. 3 guys, a VCR, a bad movie that cost $2,500. They filled it with actors who had no business being in a comedy, gave it a score that belonged in a war film, and somehow built the funniest movie of its decade. But for me, the thing I carry is Steven Zucker, a man whose talent couldn't be contained by a script, whose courage couldn't be contained by a diagnosis, and whose work keeps landing with people who'll never know his name. Which fact hit you the hardest? Drop your number in the comments. And here's my real question. If David Letterman had gotten that role, would this movie even exist the way we know it? I want to hear it.